Have you checked the children? Your little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Bienvenidos, Fright fans, and welcome to the Horror Show. I am Jaime and Fuego, and so very stoked to be finally catching up on some Patreon stuff here at the very beginning of 2022. There was a scare of Captain Trips within our ranks and the holidays, so playing a little bit of what the mama tomato says to the baby tomato after it starts to lag behind on a walk. Yep, we're talking ketchup, not catsup. There is a difference. But yeah, guys, today I am going to be briefly discussing the 2019 as indie can be film. And unfortunately, Sam, I'm not saying that in a necessarily good way. I'm talking about Tennessee Gothic. Now, Tennessee Gothic, I struggle to even say falls into the horror genre or even the thriller genre, but the fact that there is some bloodshed and stuff, very, very loose affiliation is the way that I would go about it. And so overall thoughts and acting, story, effects, all that stuff that we typically hit up. It's always a little bit briefer here on the Patreon request, but Tennessee Gothic is borderline sexploitation, and I know some are into that, some are not. It's very much got that midnight movie grindhouse sort of grossness to it, but not as far as like kills, sorry, just adjusting the hair, kills or craziness or anything like that. It starts out that way, you know, and combining overall thoughts and story at least a little bit. I will say that there's a mysterious girl who at the very beginning is like going through the woods, and I'm assuming Tennessee, she's somewhere in the south, and she's trying to escape these guys, and it's either one guy or two guys, I can't remember, but she is on the run, and she ends up having to commit some pretty graphic murder to get away and make her proper escape. But that's where things shift gears completely, because she ends up laying low at this farm with a father and a son duo. And here's where things just get weird, because of the fact that she starts using her sex as currency. They call it sexerncy. I don't know. They don't call it that. Fuego. What the hell are you saying? But yeah, she's initially both of these guys are like, despite their attraction to her, because she's a little cutie, they're like, no, we're going to be virtuous and we're not going to take advantage of this situation, and the fact that she is a runaway, and the fact that, as you find out later, she's supposedly, I think, like 16 or 17, even though she very obviously looks like she's in her 20s, thank God, because she's naked throughout pretty much all this movie, and you see your fair share of mass, and you see, I think you see a little dongage, I'm trying to remember specifically, but yeah, get your fair share of sex in this movie, and our lead lady is showing her goodies throughout the entirety, and yeah, she starts going to bed in the hay with the son, but then later on, she's like making sexual advances at the, much older, like, I mean, he's old. He's an old man, He's not like, he's not a Tom Selleck type, or like, I mean, he's not like some handsome older guy. He's very much like a Ralph Brentner from The Stand or something, sort of like, like overweight and, aging good old boy of sorts. And so she's going to bed with both of them, and it's kind of an unbeknownst thing, at least initially, to the son, and but then when local law enforcement gets involved and like one of the local preachers get involved, there is some bartering that goes down to conceal said secret of her being a runaway, as opposed to turning her into authorities. And then by that point, everybody's having sex with this girl, and it's really ridiculous, man. It's out of control. Now, granted, the tone does induce some laughs from time to time, because it goes like straight up like Benny Hill, like sort of goofy ass shit for a good middle portion of this movie. And I guess the over the topness of all the sexploits, sexcapades and everything, I found it amusing to a degree, but it plays itself out. It warms out its welcome so very quickly. And I like schlock. I like sleaze. I mean, some of my favorite films of the last few years in the I guess sector of genre filmmaking, which is what you would classify the odd hodgepodge that this movie eventually becomes being. The acting is deliberately goofy and over the top, as well as a lot of the line writing and everything. The girl does play it. She's very much like the equivalent of a noir femme fatale that you question her intentions, and I'm not specifying anything. The third act does go for a very hard turn, and we do at least get some more horror themes without spoiling stuff, because it is, when it's revealed, it kind of makes sense. Without getting into it, there is a South Park episode from, I believe, season 2, starts with an S and ends with Occubus. And yeah, that's there's some interesting aspects about the revelation. Now, anyone who's familiar with that particular term knows that those exist in the real world as well, and they are often classified as everything from gold diggers, like Kanye said, to, you know, any sort of woman who is taking advantage of men. And it becomes pretty clear early in this movie that, yes, this woman is using her goodies to take advantage of a lot of different men in this town, but more so than anything, the father and son duo who she actually resides with. And so, yeah, the score, I will say, though, like the original music for this, it's got some nice country twang and blues, and you know, just very much like of that area of the country. So the score and the original compositions that I would imagine were made specifically for this, having a couple little brothers that have been in the South, you know, between Georgia and even parts of Florida and stuff like that, I enjoy the sort of tunes that we have throughout this film. As far as gore goes, really, there is not much of anything aside from that opening escape that our lead lady character has until we get to the third act. And that's where stuff really starts to happen and get at least a little bit more interesting. And yet that's also where the tone shifts drastically. And so I will at least give them credit for swinging for the fences and doing something different, despite the weird niche that the film falls into for a good chunk of... I mean, honestly, it's about 75% of the movie. You've got the beginning, you have the end, and then there is like that good 75 to 80% that is the center of the film, where the tone is in a lot of ways completely different. But I did rent this on Vimeo. I believe Sandglass actually sent us either a Blu-ray or a DVD copy of it, but I wanted to support the filmmakers, as I often do, especially when it's only a couple of doll hairs like this. So I did rent it on Vimeo. It's only $1.99 if you are curious about any of the things I've said here, would like to support the filmmaker and the crew and, you know, the actors and everybody involved. I've seen worse films, and I definitely know that there is an audience for this sort of schlock and sleaze, as I said. But don't go in expecting anything traditional horror, but then again, it's also not traditional comedy. It's most definitely not for the easily offended, and I've got thick skin. Not that this offended me, but just, I don't know. A buddy of mine, Ben Grimm, he was recently doing the Vice Patrol films, which were like late night Skinamax sort of silliness, and it's films like that I would probably most closely compare Tennessee Gothic to. So, a grande gracias, Fright fans, and all the patrons. We greatly appreciate your support here on The Horror Show. If you would like to become one yourself, I don't know if this is going to migrate over to the main YouTube channel. Probably not. So if you're watching this, you probably are a patron already. But if you would like to upgrade to a higher tier, request a film as opposed to just watching the exclusive videos here, ask us to do a commentary. We also have higher tiers with like the Boogie Box, where we send a personally curated care package of all kinds of cool, spooktacular shizzle. So yes, the support is greatly appreciated, and if this does end up on YouTubies at some particular point, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill, and I have been Jaime and Fuego, and until next time, Fright fans, remember, stay scared.